Welcome, everyone. I'm Michelle Molitor, founder and executive director of the Equity Lab. We are so glad that you're joining us for this vital conversation on navigating leadership that drives lasting, people-centered organizational change. One that reflects the multiracial, intergenerational world that we live in and serves the communities at its heart. Whether you're tuning in live or watching the replay, we are thrilled to have each of you here with us today. The Nexus Fellowship was born out of a deep need for something different. My own leadership journey started as a founding administrator and a principal of a school in Washington, D.C. I went on to facilitate and coach hundreds of leaders and teams where I saw firsthand how committed, values-driven, and people-centered leaders were often left feeling isolated, exhausted, and forced to navigate systemic barriers alone. And we wanted to change that. I wanted to change that. Through my experiences, I saw what was missing from traditional leadership programs, what I wished I'd had when I was starting this work or trying to sustain it. But leaders don't just need theory. They need practice, they need community, and they need strategy. And that's why the Equity Lab launched Nexus in 2018, not as another leadership development program, but as a space for collective transformation, for the weaving of community, a place where leaders could build skills, strategies, and networks needed to sustain their work and drive real systemic change. For organizations committed to advancing inclusive practices and transformational shifts in power and opportunity, investing in Nexus isn't just about developing individual leaders, it's about embedding lasting change within teams and institutions. Nexus Fellows are equipped with skills to navigate resistance and drive systemic change within their organizations, implement leadership strategies that align with values-driven, people-centered change, and strengthen team culture and expand an organization's capacity for transformational leadership. And that brings us to today's conversation, which I am so excited about. We know that the work of transforming systems so that they work for everyone is not easy work. The goalposts keep shifting, the challenges keep stacking up, and yet the work must move forward. And now, particularly, the work must move forward. The leaders joining me today live live this reality, lead through it, and their Nexus experiences have emerged with insights on how to sustain themselves, their teams, and their impact. So today we're going to explore what it takes to remove barriers, to navigate that complexity, and build networks that sustain real change. And I can't think of a better group to have this conversation with. So I want to introduce our panelists today. Each of them brings a unique and powerful perspective to this conversation, shaped by their leadership journeys and their connection to the Nexus Fellowship and to Nexus community. So first we have Dr. Lydia Carlos. She's the Chief Learning and Impact Officer at Acelero Learning. Lydia has spent her career ensuring that all children, regardless of background, have access to the learning environments they need to thrive. She's an expert in leveraging data, design, and research to drive impact, particularly in early childhood education. Lydia participated in a Nexus Accelerator. It's an organizational cohort experience of the fellowship. And she brings deep insight into how teams, not just individuals, can build leadership that fuels long-term systemic change. So welcome, Lydia. Next, we have Daniela Vassan, a partner at Wildflower Schools, a decentralized network that creates beautiful, inclusive, and child-centered learning environments. Daniela has played multiple roles in the nonprofit and social venture space, from designing holistic programs to managing boards and developing innovative educational models. She was a part of Nexus Cohort 3 and will share how the fellowship helped her shape her approach to systems change in education and how she continues to navigate roadblocks today. Welcome, Daniela. And finally, we have Belma Gonzalez, a founding member of Within Collaborative, a longtime Nexus coach, and just a dope friend, a powerhouse in coaching BIPOC social justice leaders. Belma's commitment to liberation, to leadership and justice is lifelong. She started as an activist in the anti-war and civil rights movements and has since coached hundreds of BIPOC social justice leaders, helping them to develop leadership practices that sustain their work. So today she'll share insights on how coaching, reflection, and deep relationships help leaders push past resistance and sustain their impact. I'm so excited for this conversation. So let's dive in. Welcome, Belma, as well. So let's start with Lydia. I'd love to just ask you a little bit more about your experience with the Nexus Accelerator with Acelero. Acelero is doing the critical work of expanding early childhood education and ensuring that children, particularly those from historically excluded communities, have access to high quality learning environments. Can you share what navigating this tightrope has looked like in your professional career? And what challenges have you faced and how have you worked through them?
Yeah, I would say that first, Acelero is an organization. We serve about 415,000 children in 33 states and territories. And so one of the challenges is that we are responding to so many local, state, and federal contexts in order to serve children who receive public funding across all of those different jurisdictions. And one of the things that Nexus really have helped us to do, or in thinking about like some of the challenges that we face with that, is that it can be easy to have lots of initiatives when you have that many different places that you are trying to support. But we wanted to move from initiatives to full integration, and really be able to understand how can we live our values and embed our values into all of our systems. And that is something that we were supported in through doing the Nexus Accelerator, because we had so many leaders from across the organization and across our different business units supporting that work. Another related challenge is championing equality, or getting to the outcome of belonging and thriving for all in those complex systems. And so when we are working, our mission is early learning, but we have to work through public systems to do that. And we're looking at workforce development in order to do that as well. It means like we're navigating so many layers of policy, funding, regulations, while trying to ensure that everyone has the tools, resources, and support they need to thrive. So we needed an approach that strengthened our leadership capacity across all of these areas so that leaders could then strengthen their teams. And then finally, just balancing mission and compliance. So we have a mission that I love, and it is what drew me to the organization. The mission has evolved over time, but the center of the mission is always ensuring that children and families have the tools, supports, and resources that they need to thrive. And being able to do that and continue to center fairness, opportunity, dignity, while you are navigating now more recently real challenges to some of those concepts is hard. And so so I would say that those are some of the leadership challenges that we've been facing, and some of the ways that we have been focusing on mitigating those challenges, eliminating those challenges when possible, is really thinking about systems and really thinking about how can we focus on the challenges as opportunities to really live our values.
I love that, Lydia. Thank you for sharing. And just if folks are less familiar, so we have the Nexus Fellowship, which is national. That's people coming from all over the country to be a part of this and to find that strength in that community. But Lydia and Acelero by doing a Nexus accelerator that was just with your organization, just with your leaders. Can you talk a little bit more about how that experience shaped and changed that group, and how you are using that experience to think about and navigate, particularly these times where you are navigating these layers of federal, state, and local expectations and needs, and wanting to hold that in balance? And I want to ask you first, but I'd love for this to be a bigger conversation if folks want to jump in.
Yeah. We really focused on, so first, we shifted our values. One value in particular, we started in 2016, 2019, our value became embracing diversity. And then in 2022, we shifted it to dismantling inequities. And when we were thinking about what is needed for a leader to either embrace diversity or dismantle inequities, it really centered on adaptive leadership. And so we had lots of ideas for training that would get us some technical skills, but less that could support a group of people really being able to center adaptive leadership that is values aligned. And so the Nexus Accelerator was a way for us to build on the work that we had actually done with about 50 leaders through doing equity by design, Caroline Hill's equity by design. So we did that and got really good feedback, but we still needed something that could help us turn that into systemic change and focus for our entire organization. And so I think that Nexus was like the great next step for a smaller group of folks who have participated in Equity by Design to continue their learning and be able to ripple that across the whole organization. So we had about 17 leaders who led different divisions. All of our executive team participated together. We had coaching from the amazing Belma Gonzalez. She also served as my personal coach. But what that did was reinforced what we were saying our commitment was through our values, right? So the work wasn't to shift who we were as an organization as much as help us live who we said we wanted to be as an organization. And that did require some mindset shifts and some work together on how we would achieve it, what it means within our own context. All of that work had to happen. But it couldn't have happened at a better time because we had changed our value to dismantling inequities and wanted to really look at, well, how do we make that real? How do we live what that means throughout all of our values? And then finally, we wanted to move from individual learning where we send, one or two people to something and they come back and try to spread it across the 1,700 people who are in our organization, to organizational transformation. And so being able to do the accelerator allowed us to have those common expectations, to begin speaking that common language, to begin analyzing and auditing our work according to a similar set of expectations that we were all learning together at the same time.
I really appreciate that. And just briefly, and it's not a brief conversation, but I'm going to say briefly anyway, but just briefly, having had that experience together and as you're navigating these times, March of 2025, do you feel like it's making a difference in how you all are communicating with each other or trying to figure out the difficulties of the time?
100%. Like, we are in an environment where we had to shift. We are having to. So we're in the process of shifting our strategy to respond to federal and state regulations and executive orders that challenge the work that we have been doing, that require us to adapt our strategy to something that can be fully compliant with the law and fully aligned with our values and our mission. That's a talk about a tightrope. Like, that is where we are. But the skills, like, if one of the books, I think it might be the only book that we read as a whole team, was Emergent Strategy. And if you think about what we learned as a team and as a cohort, from that book, it's about being able to both and being yes and right, being able to make small shifts that lead to transformational changes. And so really it's helping us to think about, how do we, again, fully comply and fully live our values in ways that are not lip service, that can be like seen, felt, and quantified. And that is a challenge that I know we are better able to meet, because we have this common language, common goal of, everyone being able to thrive.
Yeah, thank you. I'm curious, Daniela and Belma, are you seeing similar things as you think about your own work, or seeing similar values tensions that people are experiencing?
Well, I had the privilege and honor to work with Acelero and to be the coach for the executive team. And as Lydia said, her coach, her one-on-one coach. And, I think with coaching, right, there's this opportunity to go a little deeper than what might happen in a group process and in gaining skills. The skills are incredibly important, and people need to integrate them into who they are and how they feel, and to have an environment to do that. And what I witnessed is people recognizing that although it was uncomfortable to be having some of the conversations and to be considering how to adapt, we tend to like to know that we're doing A and then B and then C, to actually recognize, oh, shoot, we need to do A and then maybe jump to X and then come back to E. To have a place to explore that and recognize that they had the courage to actually take those chances of trying to do it differently, of adapting, and that they weren't alone in their discomfort of, to know that, oh, it's not just me, it's us, and we are in this together. And to find the personal courage and then therefore the confidence to say, yeah, we do need to do this differently. That's what I witnessed, and that's what I loved being able to support in all the folks that I interacted with during that time.
Thank you, Belma. Daniela, I want to move to you. I'm just so curious. So Wildflower Schools is actually doing something really unique right now. You're working to address systemic roadblocks by completely reimagining learning spaces. What obstacles has Wildflower encountered in trying to scale this model and do this work? But also, are there things that you are considering anew, given the times that we're in?
Yeah, good question. So just giving a brief background about Wildflower, we support teachers as entrepreneurs to open micro Montessori schools around the country. And I think one of the biggest pieces that appealed to me when I joined Wildflower is knowing that all children, regardless of background and socioeconomic status or identification, all deserve a high quality education. And for me, like Montessori, hands down, was something that I just deeply believe in the research and the background. And so I would say one of the things that we do really uniquely is our organizational design. We're self-managed, which requires a lot of self-understanding and self-knowledge. And so I would say, in order to really do this great work out in the world, we also have to have our own prepared environment and do our own self-work, which I think was one of the biggest benefits of having joined the fellowship is to really like center and ground in who I was as a woman of color in an organization that can predominantly be a white space or white wealthy space, and being able to step into my own power and see my worth and my intelligence, and to really allow that to be how I show up both in my work through Wildflower, but then also engaging with community partners and funders and folks that can sometimes feel like they're just a world apart from where I'm from. I would say like we have struggled with the regulations, especially with the federal government and with the state. But I think one of the things that has helped me is to have the grounding and the orientation around my own self, what's within my power, and then how do we stay true to our values. And I feel like so much of that came through the Nexus Fellowship, like grounding in self and then working on adaptive and technical leadership skills while being centered around like my own self-manifesto, which I wrote during the fellowship, and developing a vision with my coach in a similar position to Belma. That was like the ongoing coaching that I received really helped me understand who am I, what am I about, and then how do I use that as the lens so that I don't compromise my values when challenges come up, which we've seen this has been a trying time for many of us.
Yeah. It's interesting, Daniela. I always think about you as being just like such a balancing presence in your cohort and your energy. I'm so curious, as you are navigating these aspects, these tough times, these things that feel challenging and uncertain, what are you doing to kind of keep yourself centered?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think one of my like people, because I feel like doing this work requires being in community. And I do feel like having gone with a colleague to the Nexus Fellowship, Lydia, you inspired me because we met during the fellowship and I was like, oh, a whole org can participate in this. This would be amazing. But I went with my colleague who is still someone I'm very close with and I reach out to for centeredness and balance. I also think it's an ongoing practice. And in many ways, this fellowship kind of was the catalyst or the boomerang that helped me realize like it's not a one and done thing. And so I read a lot to re-anchor in my beliefs. I connect with people. I've integrated a meditation practice into my day because I like one of the fundamental pieces was it starts with you. The other thing I took away from the fellowship was this idea that it's not just about tearing down systems, but we have to be able to envision and understand what we're trying to rebuild. And I think that idea has really stuck with me, especially in a time that feels so volatile that I actually like, if systems are being destroyed right now, that's one thing. And I want to be a part of imagining what an alternative reality can look like and not just wait for someone else to save us or someone else to build something, because now feels like the time. And so I've been trying to spend some of that, meditation time to also ground in what is the vision, especially around education that I want to see in the world.
I love that. Thank you, Daniela. And I think about actually with this cohort of Nexus Fellows, Caroline Hill was teaching, and she was talking about how the first thing that oppression steals is imagination. And just how critical it is for us to be able to name that, recenter, and really lean in and create space, time, process, community for that imagination. I do want to rethink, what do we want it to be? So thank you so much for that. Belma, you've worked with so many leaders navigating this tightrope across different sectors, different organizations, movements. What are the most common challenges you see leaders facing, and how does coaching help ease some of those challenges?
Well, it's very similar to what I mentioned before. Leaders have, they do have vision. They do get their imagination kind of compromised, and it's helpful to have a place to be reminded of the power of imagination, and that it doesn't need to be stolen, that we can have it, we can claim it. And it's also important for folks to recognize that they aren't alone, that it isn't just them, that it can be so easy to start to think, I'm not enough. I don't know enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough skills. And there's good reason to have that kind of voice. It's to motivate us to do better, to do the best we can. But it also can get really debilitating. So to have a place to be reminded of, you are enough. You've got it. You look what you've done so far. Look what you can imagine and what you want to be doing, and to get energized in that kind of from that kind of place. And that's what I attempt to do when I'm working with folks, is to create a time, an environment that sort of is out of the daily grind, to be a place to be re-energized, and to know that there's at least one person, if not more, that to be reminded of community and the importance of community. And that at least I, as the coach, believe in them, and they better have respect for me and what I believe in. If I believe in you, don't be disrespecting me and not believing in yourself. I've been around the block. So and I love being able to support people and recognizing the unique brilliance that they're bringing and their commitment, and reminding them and me. I mean, I get reminded as I'm providing it, that we can make a difference even as things are being dismantled. We don't have to just watch the dismantling. We can be actually seeing it as an opportunity for change. So what's the change we want? And let's build that together.
Yeah, it's a profound amount of opportunity.
Absolutely.
We have to see it that way.
Exactly. I see a lot of folks coming to me when they start feeling, disempowered, lonely, overwhelmed, and it's my job to support them, to have compassion for that, and to support them in recognizing, alongside that, it's the both and that Lydia mentioned, alongside being disempowered, what is the power you have? What is the energy you have? What can you reclaim? How do you, hope is a practice. So how do you practice having hope? And how do you reclaim your imagination and allow the power of your imagination to carry you forward?
I love that. I think about the Alice Walker quote: the quickest way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any.
Exactly.
And just constantly reminding people that you do have power. Like, let's think about how to leverage that. And who's your community? Who are your people? How do you gather in a way that allows you to feel that nourishment? I actually think community building is going to be a key factor in how we navigate this time going forward, and how we don't feel disempowered by it. Belmont,
relational creatures.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We're relational creatures. We need one another. We need to we get validated by being with one another, and we validate each other. We get energized when we can support someone else, and we get energized by their support. We need each other.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
We can get all nerdy and sciencey on that some other time. Belma, I do want to ask you very specifically, because in the Nexus Fellowship, we very purposefully embed coaching. So it's not an aside, it's not an option. It's actually something that we see as critical for people being able to have the breakthroughs that they have. Can you talk a little bit more about why you think that having it as an embedded feature of the program makes a difference?
Yeah. I want to talk about two things. One, why I think it's important to embed it in the program, and also what I've witnessed in other leadership programs that also use coaching, but it's sort of this add-on. Because in Nexus, it really is a part of what is going on in the community. So I think that the importance of having coaching is the having the opportunity to have this private, confidential place where someone can speak their truth, whatever that is. If it's skepticism about what they're witnessing in Nexus, if they're learning something and they're thinking, I don't know if this will work for my organization, to have a place to actually unpack that and discuss that and feel into that and then figure out, well, so what do you want to do about that, without feeling some kind of disloyalty, or maybe this isn't the right place for me, or all those sort of things. It's also just another place to process on an individual level what is experienced, because that is what we as human beings need, is we can get a sense of things, in our mind and maybe in our heart a bit, but to have it really processed somatically in an individualized way, I believe that's what coaching can provide. So it really deepens the connection to values that we've been talking about, and then the connection to what do I want to do? How do I want to show up? This is who I am, and this is what I believe in, and this is how I want to carry the work forward. And then the part about the with Nexus in particular, like I say, I've been part of a lot of coaching pools for different kinds of programs, and it's great that they offer some coaching, but it often does seem like an add-on. It's like that there's not an integration. And with Nexus, there is a recognition of the importance of coaching and what the coaches are doing, what the coaching tools are about, how they're relational tools. There's also I get to have the privilege of sharing, like taking the curtain away, no Wizard of Oz here. How does coaching work? What are the foundational tools of coaching, so that people can use them, because they're relational skills. They're ways that we can be with one another, and be in generative learning that may include disagreement, and is the both and how to be respectful of the differences that we bring. So that embedding it just allows for, I think, the coaching to go deeper, and for folks to have tools that they can then use with their teams as well.
Can I add one thing about how awesome coaching was as well, the group and the individual being a part of the accelerator? One, for our executive team, we still are like gleaning the benefits of the work that we did with Velma to like become a team and like actually integrate around adaptive strategies in how we work with each other. So that was a great benefit, but I also see it, we had basically affinity groups, if you will, in that team group coaching happened with folks who were in similar roles or similar level of roles across the organization. And those relationships continue, and that ability for them to like they reference things that they learned in coaching together still today, in meetings and in different activities and how they work together. So both the individual and the group like added so much value to our experience as an organizational cohort.
Well, and speaking to that in particular, just one other thing that makes me think of is that so often when we're doing work, when we're in organizations, it's all about the work, and we forget that we're human. And what we need as humans, and how we need to be connected, and how we need to know that we're providing a contribution, that we're important to the contribution, and that even if there's differences, that it's important that I'm here and that I'm contributing to our mission. And that's what coaching attempts to do, is to slow it down. Let's not just have the agenda and we've got to go tick, 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 and do the to-dos on the agenda. That's important. Absolutely. We got to get stuff done. And I really believe we're going to get stuff done more effectively if we actually have trust and respect and connection with one another. And that's what coaching can also provide.
I'll add one more thing too. I feel like Wildflower's design is decentralized and we're non-hierarchical, self-managed, and like you name the thing. And one of the values is that we would get coaching for ourselves. And I'd worked at the organization for like 3 years and not signed up to get coaching because I felt like, was I really worth it? It costs a lot. And I feel like the Nexus Fellowship actually, it didn't give me a choice in a good way, where it allowed me to center myself and not be so selfless that like I wasn't worthy, or, you know,
Right.
I'll do all this work, but do it from a place of really like giving without also like feeling that reciprocal like reception of support. And I feel like the Nexus Fellowship really, it was transformative, especially not only for me as the individual, but like Lydia was saying with her leadership team. I also was in it with my partner, and it was a helpful way to also see my own lens and the narratives I was telling myself, and giving a different dimension by having a colleague also hold up a mirror to say, actually, I saw this a little bit differently, or here's how we can push each other. And I feel like that was really strengthening too.
I love that. Yeah, and you use the word practice, and actually that is like throughout. I feel like whether it's the coaching aspect or our actual trying to go through and learn different skills, we talk a lot about liberatory adaptive work or liberatory technical work. And what does that look like? But really, it's so much practice. It's ongoing practice. I feel like I'm constantly practicing and constantly being like, you know, like that didn't go the way I thought it would, or whatever. But like, I just think, that when you find joy in the practice and you really realize that like the practice is actually what creates the relationships and weaves together those communities, and how we see each other intergenerationally, and how we respect and hold each other's humanity. It's all about practicing. And so come practice with us. I would love if each of you wouldn't mind if there's just like a takeaway that you want to share with people. How can we close this out? Please share one more thing for the people from each of you.
Well, my mic is open, so I'll go first. I have been a part of a lot of different leadership programs. I went through a leadership program when I was a newer leader, before I was a coach. And I can't say enough about Nexus taking what supports individuals to be able to come into a community, to benefit from being in that community, to be able to look at what they're doing the work for and where they want the work to go to, and to be able to do that by learning more about themselves, what motivates them, what's important to them as an individual, and then what's important in the community, and have all these people have their back as they go forward, as they go back to their organizations and do the work, because we know it's not easy. It's not easy to stay in it. But there can be joy in being in community and knowing we're in it together.
Thank you, Belma. Look, one of y'all got to go.
I will go ahead and go. I think what I would say as a takeaway is that regardless of the work that you are doing and the challenges of your work that you might be facing in today's political environment, Nexus strategies, Nexus focus on, as Daniela said, starting with self and moving all the way through systems. If you can get that lens, then you can apply that lens to whatever challenges are coming your way. And that is really what preparing for today helped me to just recenter, that even as we have to shift our strategy, our goal and our vision and our outcome remain the same. And we have tools to help us get there. And so I would say this is a great program for really helping you to connect your desires with your values and your reason, your purpose. And so I would highly recommend 10 out of 10.
Thank you, Ms. Lydia.
I echo all that's been shared, and I'd say too, just being able to be grounded in my own self, my leadership, like Lydia was saying, like it affects everything that I do because it's now the lens that I use moving forward. And standing in my own power, I think, was truly one of the greatest benefits, to be able to advocate and be seen and heard and not inadvertently give my power to other people or to cut myself down. And I would say too, I was listening to someone talk the other day about being in community and how, like, we can say that phrase a lot, but really community requires that we not just like be present with each other, but really challenge each other. And being in community requires vulnerability to ask for what you need and say that you need something if something isn't going well. And I feel like from the Nexus Fellowship, it really created the space for me to be in community and to have a group of people that I know that if I needed anything, I could text, I could call, I could email, and I feel safe to be vulnerable with them. And I feel the same as a result. And so just even the sheer act of that resistance of like being in community and feeling like we are choosing support and love and vulnerability makes me just feel that much stronger moving into the world, especially in times of uncertainty. So that, and then also, of course, like all the added benefits for the organization where I feel like I can transfer that then, and it's one relationship at a time until it influences everybody.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank y'all. This is like kind of what I needed on this Tuesday. So I just want to share one thank you. This has been such a rich and powerful conversation. And some key takeaways from what we've heard today. Removing barriers requires both courage and strategy. The roadblocks are real, but they are not insurmountable. Today, we heard how leaders are pushing through resistance with clarity, persistence, and support. Navigating complexity is an ongoing practice. The leadership journey isn't about finding easy answers. It's about developing the capacity to adapt, to hold multiple truths, and also to stay grounded in values, even when the landscape is shifting. And networks sustain real change. No one can do this work alone. None of us is doing this work alone. Nexus for Life is a community. It's a community of people that make Nexus family. And so whether it's through coaching, peer support, strategic partnerships, we see how intentional relationships are a key factor in long-term impact. And really, we now want to invite you to join us. So if today's conversation resonated with you, if you see yourself in these challenges and you're ready to deepen your leadership in a way that feels practical, transformational, is deeply community-driven, we really want to invite you to apply for the Nexus Fellowship. We would love to have you in Cohort 5. So applications are now open. You can learn more at the link that has been splashed up on our screen a few times. And whether you're an individual leader who's looking to sharpen your skills and expand your impact, if you are an organization who's ready to invest in building the kind of leadership that drives lasting change, we're here for you. So you can join us either in Cohort 5. If you'd like to do this work as an individual organization, you can reach out to us to do that work. But we are very, very excited about the possibility of being in relationship with you. So thank you for joining us today. Please keep leading, keep pushing, keep building, and we will see you next time.